Yeah, we also had Dr. Vincent Peter Hayden. Dr. Hayden is the president of MBAC, but he is also the designer and owner of one of the largest Black mental but behavioral health and especially substance abuse programs in the country. He's just been awarded on all kinds of national levels in Minneapolis, Minnesota. And yes, George Floyd was a part of his program, but more importantly, Dr. Hayden talked about how sustainable treatment can be, people can be trained on sustainable treatment in working with Black people, because that has been, a really big problem throughout the United States. In Massachusetts is number 4 in the United States for opiate overdoses, for raising the numbers for opiate overdose for Black and brown people. And one of the reasons is that people are not able to access treatment because of culturally competent program in Massachusetts any longer. So, so part of our goals are really to see how we can learn and advocate to get more programs in Massachusetts, and to highlight Dr. Hayden's program in Minneapolis, and hopefully be able to help others who are trying to reach this community and train and learn how to manage the care of this specific population. Julie?
Okay, so do you want, we could talk about the MBAC, or do you want to speak? Okay.
So, MBAC has been around for about 40 years. Massachusetts Alcoholism and Addictions Council, part of NBAC, which is the national council. And the goal, when it was first designed by Dr. Francis Brisbane for MBAC, was really to look at how do we work with people who are going to be, there are going to be more people who work with people of color in addiction treatment than people who are people of color. And so one of the major things that we do is really gather information and research and train in order to be helpful in serving this population in a comprehensive and cultural manner. So MBAC in Massachusetts now is really developing a platform to work with the legislators. We've reached out to legislators. We're collaborating with Jen Tracy and folks over at the Office of Recovery Services. Jen is wonderful, and the folks at BSAS with Julia and Jen Parks and all the folks over at BSAS and more, and RISE. And so there are a number of organizations that are really supporting the mission of MBAC, because they all understand that people are losing their lives on a daily basis, and we're all taking this very seriously, because with the amount of money and resources that we have in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, there's no reason why the communities of color cannot work together with all of the organizations that I've mentioned and those that we haven't connected with yet, MCAS and others, to be able to help to save lives. So this is a critical point in our lives, and it's critical to all of us to understand the importance of the advocacy. It's not a conference, it's an institute, and I'll let Julie want to talk a little bit about the institute.
Yeah, we are having the mini BAI June 8th through 10th, and we don't know what avenue it will be done through, either hybrid or Zoom. The isms impacting women and girls, Black mental health, men's health, the impact of COVID in the Black community, a closer look at Massachusetts criminal justice, and working with clients who, which is a huge one, working with clients who don't look like you. So we're very excited that more is going to be doing with them to lift voices and to through social media make people aware of the distinction between Black and brown communities and what is needed in these communities to help lift their voices.
So be on the lookout for the save the date. We've all been working really hard to make this happen. It's going to be a wonderful institute, but it won't end there. We'll still be doing other trainings through BSAS and AdCare for organizations and for anyone who's really interested. But Moore is a major supporter of the institute, and we're very grateful to be a part of this. But I think even more so for me, I'm very grateful to be a part of Moore. I've been on the outskirts of Moore for many, many years. And what also I think is really important for us to talk about is to understand that that one of the shifts that Moore is making is that through the speaker series that we have developed a roundtable, and we talked about at the roundtable, we talked with the people that were part of the speaker series about the needs. So we're gathering data around the needs of communities of color. And some folks at the table will be providing more info. Will be looking for support from Moore in how they can be at the table and not on the menu. So I think that's really important in terms of looking at that shift, and then becoming members of Moore is a really big important part of being able to support all of the initiatives that are going to help to save lives. And I think Julie wants to talk a little bit about membership and joining Moore.
Yeah, so if you and through our website, you can go to our website and look at some of our past speakers and view it through the recordings that we have. They've been very informative about what is needed in the Black and brown community to, like I said, help lift voices, help to get more access to treatment for them, because recovery is a little bit different for Black and brown communities and the Indigenous community. Also, we do this by increasing media through awareness and making resources accessible. So if you go on our website, you will be able to fill out a little card. But since we're not in person, there's a place where you can go and fill out to become a member of Moore, so you can look at what we are doing in the community to help increase the voices of people who are discriminated against.
Great.
Can I see the next slide?
I think that's it.
No, there's one more. Okay. I just want to make sure that people know that Moore is in the transition of creating all of our paper to make sure that everybody will be accessible to our mini guide and any sort of paperwork that we put out in the community, or so that they can be able to access it.
So all you folks that are on here tonight and you haven't registered for Moore, you haven't joined Moore, your voice isn't being heard, please, make it your business, because this is an organization that is and very eager to help other organizations look at what Moore has done around diversity, equity, inclusion, and be helpful in making that transition in your organization as well. So,
and we need the next generation of advocates.
Yes. Bring on the young folks.
Faces, and thank you for what you continue to do. Through the pandemic, through all of the difficult times. So I appreciate each of you, and thank you for having me here with you today. And I'll stay for as long as I'm able to. Today I want to speak, we've talked about many topics before together. Today I want to speak specifically, as Marianne said, about the issues related to mass casts. And they are so critical to us thinking about how we think about substance use disorder and how we think about recovery. And what the focus is will really be on unsheltered individuals who may be impacted by substance use and mental health issues. And so this is really, of all the work we've all done together, this is a subgroup of us who were really known to many of us for a very long time, but became known to the general public, if you will, and others based on the encampments that developed over the last couple of years at the area we all know of as Mass Cass. And when we think about this, Mass Cass area, and we think about the encampments where we saw, hundreds of people, over 90 plus tents, that is really a symbol of the ways in which our systems have failed some of us and have failed to be able to provide the services, the harm reduction services that many of us need. So when the mayor asked myself and Jen Tracy and Dr. Ojikutu from the commission and Chief Dillon from Mayor's Office of Housing to look at this, we really wanted to make sure we focused on taking a step back and saying, what is the root cause of these encampments here? And what is the way in which we can take a public health, to Julie's points earlier, an equity-focused approach to the work that we do in this area, and look at this from not tents and blocks that are, blockages that are happening to streets, but who are the people inside the tents, and what do these people need, and what services do they need? So we really wanted to start with looking at the data. So in the near term, we started working on this at the end of November, and in the near term, we were focused on addressing this as the public health emergency that it is. We saw an emergency there in the humanitarian crisis at the tents, and we knew that we wanted as quickly as possible help the individuals in the tents find a more sustainable option than being in the tents before, as we do in public health, to understand what the extent of the issue is. So this shows you just a few of those data points for you to get a sense of what we did. So we went in early December, we went over a 3-day course from tent to tent and spoke to the individuals who were sleeping in those tents. At the time, there were 77 tents. If you know the area between Atkinson's and Newmarket is where they were split, and there was 145 occupants. So we gathered all kinds of information for these occupants, including some basic demographics. The one I'm sharing here is the one related to race and ethnicity, and you can see that 36% of individuals identified as white, non-Hispanic or Latinx, 19% as Black, 39% as Hispanic Latinx, and then a group of others, about 6%. And we asked individuals, so we collected demographics and we asked individuals lots of questions about what services they needed, were they connected to medical care, what kind of mental health and substance use services did they have, and other things in terms of that related to their health, but also what kind of housing would they be amenable to accepting. And you can see here that the vast majority were amenable to low threshold housing, some to emergency shelter, and others to going directly from where they were in the tents to treatment beds. And I will say that there was a myth that was always told to me that individuals who were out in the encampments somehow were making a choice and wanted to stay there, but you're talking to the individuals who are staying there, everybody was looking for a viable alternative and really wanted to work to be able to find an option where they can go. And from, with my, looking at it through my medical lens, these living conditions were, unbelievably, nothing like anybody would want to live in. No running water, the violence, the trauma, and I could see the exacerbation of their underlying medical conditions, including their chronic medical diseases, their addictions, their mental health issues, and so on. So it really became imperative for us to move the individuals from those locations into places that they were able to be successful in. So we then went on to set up 6 different low threshold harm reduction shelters and housing options. So I want to stop there because this was really very quickly, we were working to set up a new space for these individuals because we recognized that in our existing system, there wasn't a place where they could begin their own pathway to getting out from the outside, being able to center themselves, recollect themselves, and then be able to think about their recovery and their journey forward. So we were able to send up 6 sites. I'll tell you more about those in a minute. And they were both shelter and housing sites. And currently we have 180 individuals. I told you about the 145 individuals. So between December 15th and January 12th, we did daily outreach to those individuals to build on trusting relationships, talk to them about options that they can have. And as of now, there are 180 individuals. And the components of these new sites that we have is staffing and security, housing navigation, and then engagement and opportunities to connect with medical, mental health, and substance use services. So here, just to give you the visual of these, this is the Envision Hotel. So we had 2, you can see the outside, and then the inside is set up as a basic hotel room. And so we have 2 hotel-based sites, and those are the Envision in Mission Hill and the Roundhouse located right behind Boston Medical Center, close to the Mass Cass area. And both of these sites, again, are hotel rooms where individuals have non-congregate space. They have 24/7 staffing. People do safety checks and monitoring by knocking on doors and engaging with individuals at regular intervals. They do harm reduction education. They provide, of course, meals, and then, as I mentioned, connection to those services. And people have been very successful in these settings. They have been able to stay. So the programs are in their 3rd month of the 2 months. These are individuals that many of us have worked with for a long time and weren't sure if they'd be able to come inside, especially after many of them have been outside for a long time. And our attendance rates are spectacular. In the hotel spaces, over 90+% and overall over 80+%. So people are able to get the services they need. When I talk to individuals staying in the sites, they're beyond grateful for this opportunity to reset, for this opportunity to engage in taking care of themselves and getting the services they need. Just as one example, here in the Envision Hotel on Monday of last week, they went and talked to individuals with a prescriber for Suboxone. And they would get a significant number of people who were willing to start treatment in the counseling process. Somebody is off of mute if you're saying hello. We set up 3 shelter-based programs, and those shelter-based programs, here's an example to show you the shelter-based program at Pine Street Inn, which is located on the Shattuck campus. So this is their site there. And you can see here on the left that the spacing is meant to be a little bit more, in the picture here, a little bit more private. There's common areas, there's, again, facilities and all those services involved. But we have this shelter-based harm reduction model here at Pine Street Inn at Shattuck. And then also at the 2 shelters run by the City of Boston at 112 Southampton and at Woods Mullen, which is the male and female shelter, as you may know. And the one at Woods Mullen is run in collaboration with St. Francis House. And what these provide is it's a model we have not had in Massachusetts before. It's truly harm reduction, low threshold, where individuals can come in and out as they need. They have a secured bed that is their bed that they come to each day. They have 24/7 staffing and this enhanced wraparound services to be able to provide them the services and their treatment they need. And people staying here, I was just here recently, and one of the gentlemen said that the ability to come in and out and to have staff who are focused on what they need from a treatment point of view next in their journey, it was incredibly helpful and felt, again, like a new start. This is the cottages that you may have heard about or seen if you drive by the Shattuck campus. So these are often called tiny homes or tiny houses. And these are units, you can see what they look like on the outside on the right side. And when you open one of these up, this is one of the smaller ones. You can see there are beds. Of course, this is unfurnished, so there are mattresses and space to put belongings and store belongings. And at this facility as well, there is again those services with case management, people doing wellness checks, individuals having opportunities to engage in services and in housing to be able to do housing navigation and find housing. So those are the 6 sites that we've set up. We meet regularly with the providers to learn from each other, to learn best practices. It's a high touch model where individuals are very needing and accepting of many services, and really there's a lot of staff learning from each other about how to take somebody who was staying in one of the encampments and help them go to these transitional spaces with the goal of then going from these spaces to something more permanent, or going to treatment or reconnecting with family or whatever it is that they feel ready and engaged to do. So also for the immediate, I wanted you to know that this process, takes an incredible amount of partnership with partners in organizations across Boston, but also within city government. The mayor has us all working extremely collaboratively together, including, public works for their cleaning process, the Commission's Homeless Service Bureau, the fire department, the police department, emergency services, of course, the Mayor's Office of Housing, recovery services that, as you know, Jen Tracy leads, and these other groups as well. So it's really a citywide effort to focus on how we ensure that this is a successful project, to think really focusedly on unsheltered homeless individuals who may have substance use, and find a better pathway for them. And truly, to me, this is about true harm reduction, which is meeting individuals where they are and then finding a way to help them access the services that they need. Again, both based on a public health approach of focusing on the people and the service needs of the individuals and what the data shows us. And then also part of that being a health equity approach. So all of the individuals who we placed, I mentioned that we obtained the demographic data and then followed it as we placed people to make sure that the demographics of the MassCast site were matched in how we placed people to different sites, and then tracked that over time and made adjustments and could make adjustments as needed. Right now, we're in the process of doing mid to long-term planning. So to think about how to take the lessons that we've learned from putting this model in place, how to sustain the pieces that we need to sustain, and really look at thoughtfully and critically at our outreach, shelter, housing, and treatment systems, and think about how we can help them be able to meet the needs of our unsheltered community members who are impacted by substance use. And really with the end goal to help them have stable homes and their own recovery journey for these individuals, and healthy and safe communities for everyone. I wanted to let you know that we've done, as part of this strategic planning, several stakeholder listening sessions. These are just a sampling. We've met with over 250 individuals in about 25 or so different groups. Very important to me, as I know it is to you, is talking to individuals with lived experience, both who are working in the field, but also who were individuals who stayed in those encampments, as well as people who are still unsheltered. So really has been important to get their voice and make sure that their voice is heard in these programs, what works for them, how they ended up being in the tent encampment in the first place, and so on. So can really want to be able to lead our planning and strategic planning based on what individuals with lived experience in these circumstances have to share with us. So in closing, having done this work with you for a while now, we've talked so many times in these forums about stigma. It's something that I know all of us who are here in this forum work hard to address every day. There is the stigma of substance use disorder, chronic, sometimes relapsing, recurring, and unfortunately sometimes deadly medical disease that it is. And then there's the stigma of finding yourself unsheltered, finding yourself without a home, and putting those two together, there's a lot of powerful assumptions people make. So I urge us to all continue the work on helping our community members who find themselves in these situations be understood and be valued and be assisted in the ways that we can. Again, engaging stakeholders, to you, I know, and to me also, and part of the city's work is really important to make sure we're coming up with the best solutions that actually can have the outcomes that we need for the people, the focus being on the people that we're trying to engage and help here. And it's very important for us in this long-term planning to think about sustaining our progress and our work as the summer months come, really thinking about how we can be most helpful and impactful in these areas, because it is very hard work, and it's a complex mix of issues, complex mix of root causes for these issues, and ensuring that we make sure that we are addressing it from all angles and really developing sustainable, transformative solutions. And then thinking really, to your policy agenda here, there's lots of things that
en ellas, pero ellas básicamente son lo que nos muestran cómo podemos proceder adelante proveyendo los servicios a estas personas.
At the federal level, medications are allowed to be prescribed for opioid use disorder, how we think about outreach and how we do it, and how we think about engaging unsheltered individuals as well as the rest of us in this wonderful community that Moore has put together. So I will end there and hand it back to Marianne, I believe, from here. But thank you so much for allowing me to share some thoughts with you today.
With this. So I just had a couple of updates really from the city that I wanted to add. The work that we have been doing, obviously, that Dr. Burrell was talking about has been, all encompassing for all of the teams at the city and also with our partners. I did want to share the new engagement center that replaced the tent or the large, fabric structure that we opened up in summer of 2017, and built a new facility over the last couple of years, and that opened at the end of this calendar year. We worked with the Mayor's Office of Arts and Culture, commissioned 3 different artists to work in the space, to work with and staff to create some really inviting space and to really help us elevate the space. It's not really always what we are the best at. So really appreciate all the work from other partners in this. If folks have been to the Engagement Center previously, that we operated from the tent with, outdoor porta potties and showers for the past few years. And so this is really exciting to be able to offer a safe place inside for all the folks that we're serving. There is Boston Healthcare for the Homeless is our primary partner in the space, and we are able to build out a full nursing clinic and add showers and bathrooms inside. Indoor plumbing is a big thing for us. Some laundry, snacks, and charging stations. Next slide, please. The one before that, sorry. So just showing some more pictures. There's the front entrance there. It's very busy. Obviously, it's opened and immediately full to capacity. The capacity is for 100 people, the same as the tent. And we see about 350 individuals daily in and out of the space. We have been working very closely with the state, with Dee and the team at BSAS, but also with Undersecretary Peters and others at the state, and have the Department of Motor Vehicles is on site 1 time a week to help folks get really essential IDs. We know that's a barrier to housing, it's a barrier to treatment, among other things. So that's been a great addition to the space and to services for clients. We also have probation in the group room coming once a week. If participants want to connect with probation to start clearing some things up, they're available in a drop-in way, one time a week. And I talked about the murals already. So just wanted to share that space with folks. The next update is just some of the work that we're doing to expand our community engagement. We are working with the Nubian Square engagement team, which is actually funding peer-led outreach workers. I think folks on this phone probably, and this is really working with the community to identify the issues and priorities as they see them, and creating some ambassadors, liaisons, and engagement team to work with not only the folks that are in this particular situation, we're talking about Nubian Square, so not only the folks in the square, because everyone's story is different, and to just be a resource to connect with, you know, our community providers like Pine Street Inn, who's there a couple of days a week, A-Hope, Karen Reach Fan, who's there. So to really connect folks with services and also be a resource to the businesses and residents in the area who oftentimes have questions about things. This particular team is trained in recovery coaching. And so we're really proud, you know, that that's the core of the team. They're a faith-based team as well. And we're looking to hopefully expand this in FY23 in other neighborhoods in the city. And then just a couple of quick updates. You know, mental health is a high priority for Mayor Wu, mental health and behavioral health. And so the Boston Public Health Commission is currently under the hiring process for a chief behavioral health officer for the city. That's a new position that will create a behavioral health, still in formation, but behavioral health center for the city to work on this, you know, these significant issues. And we will, the Office of Recovery Services, certainly under the behavioral health umbrella as well, will work very closely to get this office and support the new chief behavioral health officer moving forward. So that's really exciting news we want to share with you. That's sort of the first time that that I've seen that role, the city take on that role to really look at mental health services to our communities and our residents. We are working with HRIA and our overdose prevention team and developing support for small businesses in Boston. All of our small businesses are in you know, neighborhoods all across the city, so we want to support them both on how to support their own employees, but also how to engage in community and with our folks that are outside. And I think if you don't know about the Code Club campaign, please look it up on the website. We are in the middle right now of launching out the challenge. So we have young people across the city and even outside the city that are joining this challenge as part of Code Club. And that really is focused on working with young people to provide them with tools and skills to help with their wellness and any sort of challenges that they feel they may face. Christian just put the website in the chat, so I encourage you to check it out and to join us on social.
CASA has been using for this multidisciplinary team approach has come through competitive grants and the Substance Abuse Mental Health Services Administration, the federal government. But right now, there isn't a state funding source that is available for people who are living with substance use disorders to access this kind of multidisciplinary team treatment. So the Mdt model is one that really focuses on serving people regardless of what environment they're in. The care follows the individual. And this is really aimed at people who might be living with more severe and persistent mental illness, as well as a substance use disorder, so people with co-occurring conditions. And you can provide these services to folks if they are actively homeless, so they are not housed. They could be living in a transitional housing environment, like a low threshold environment, or they could be living in a permanent supportive housing environment like Bob is talking about. So they could be living in any type of different environment. They might be in residential treatment for a period of time, but a multidisciplinary team approach ensures that a psychiatrist, a medical doctor, a primary care doctor, a social worker or a caseworker, a therapist, that treatment team is going to stay with the individual and follow them. So wherever they may be, housed or sheltered doesn't dictate what kind of access to care they have. This holistic and wraparound approach is extremely successful for people who are really living with the complex co-occurring conditions, severe persistent mental illness, along with substance use disorder. So we want to see this $3 million, in the budget for sure. We know that this is a critically important model for people, especially who cycle in and out of housing, and would really need to stay connected to that consistent treatment team. And so then the final thing that we are advocating for, of course, this is a favorite of everybody, I'm sure, here on this policy call, is ATR. I don't think that there's one person that I can see here who probably doesn't utilize ATR in some way. Access to Recovery is an incredible program. Again, we're advocating for $3 million for the ATR program. ATR is so vital because it helps connect people to really tangible resources. It gives folks that sense of empowerment when they're in early recovery, and it allows them to connect to some of the most basic things that they need. At Casa Esperanza, more than 70% of the people that we serve are people who are coming from incarceration. And ATR is a model that really, folks who are coming from incarceration, veterans and pregnant postpartum women are eligible for ATR. And so many of our patients are using ATR services, and something as simple as a pair of work boots that helps somebody get back to work, that's what ATR can provide. A new mom who is, a mom who's preparing for the arrival of her child, who needs, those really essential items to take care of that newborn child, ATR can help mom get access to those resources. Somebody who's looking to get back to work and is looking for training opportunities, continuing education opportunities, ATR is there to help with that kind of training and support. So we want to make sure ATR is there for folks across the continuum. And so we want to continue to support ATR the way ATR has always supported all of us. So I think that wraps it up for MCAS and for all the things we're advocating for. Abby, did I miss anything, or Bob?
No.
Thank you.
I just wanted to say, I see several other members of the MCAS coalition, so just wanted to shout out that the other members are the MHEPC Massachusetts Coalition, Fenway Health, Learn to Cope, the Massachusetts Black Alcohol and Addiction Counselors Council, Massachusetts Housing and Shelter Alliance, Massachusetts Public Health Association. We heard from Bob from the Recovery Homes Collaborative. Then there's RISE Massachusetts, Student Coalition on Addiction, the Boston Public Health Commission, and Western Massachusetts Substance Addiction Providers Association. So thanks to all of those folks as well.
Well, thank you, Abby, Bob, and Emily. It's been wonderful to participate in MCAS for all these years. We were there back in 2003 when it all started. And now we're going to hear from the voices of lived experience. And MCAS has been a long-time supporter so that we would have recovery centers in our state, as well as people that are going to be speaking on their life experience with ATR, Mass Rehab. And Kirsten Doherty is our SOAR project director, as well as parent project director. And she's going to tell you what that's about, and she's going to introduce all the recovery center representatives. Go ahead, Kirsten.
Thanks, Marianne. So yeah, I do wear two hats, but for the sake of time, I'm not going to go too much. I'm not really going to go into the second hat, which is coordinating the parent project. We'll let you hear about that later. But doing the SOAR piece, had been working with a lot of peer recovery support centers, the recovery community organizations across the state. We have 36 now, 26 BSTAS funded and 10 that are other funded, I call it that, whether it's foundation or other private money. So we do have several speakers representing the different peer recovery support centers, and I'm going to introduce them, but I'm going to ask them to really try to limit their remarks to about 2 minutes. I know it's hard because you guys are doing such incredible work and so amazing, and through COVID you have been just my heroes, really, truly. So but just so that other speakers have an opportunity to have their turn. So but I'm excited. I know we have Divine here and the Phoenix and Step Rocks. We have a few representatives from there. Recovery on the Harbor in East Boston, Room to Grow, which is at the shelter in Boston, and the bridge out in Malden. So I am going to see, is Donna and Andrew here from the Divine Recovery Center?
Hi, yes, I'm Donna LeBlanc. I'm here from
Hi,
Divine.
Donna. Thank
Hi,
you. Yes.
Kirsten. Thank
Go
you.
right ahead.
Okay, so I am a person in long-term recovery. I work part-time as a recovery support specialist for the Recovery Center. I also work full-time for a third-party vendor contracted by EOHHS for a company called Maximus, and they're known as the Mass Health Customer Service Center, where I'm a senior intranet specialist. I am also going into my second year as a college student at Quincy College. I'm seeking degrees in computer science programming. This was all made possible by the impact that the ATR program had on my recovery journey. When I first started this journey 5.5 years ago, I was at a place where I didn't think I could hold a long-term job. So I had said to my counselors at the treatment facility that I didn't think I could get up and go to the same job every single day. And this was due to the fact that I'd been homeless for most of my life. I had at that time been homeless on the Massencast for approximately 4 years prior to becoming a participant at an ATR and getting into treatment, God willing, for the last time. So there's actually an article in the Boston Globe called Life and Loss of Methadone Mile that was written back in the summer of 2016 that I'm a part of. And by accessing the services that the ATR script, an opportunity to write an essay called Lifting the Veil on Massencast, where it spoke to the low threshold housing, inspired by none other than our very own DOB. Thanks, Danielle. Got an A. ATR not only provided me with finance to get to and outreach potential employers. I was referred by my case manager to Dress for Success for interview and business professional attire. Additionally, ATR afforded me the opportunity to participate in both the JVS program and the Work Ready program at Project Place, where I was able to refresh my computer and resume building skills. But this helped me build the confidence that I needed at the time, that I needed to know that I could be committed, accountable, and responsible enough to get up and get to a job on a daily basis, especially where I hadn't held a real job in over 25 years. Within a few months of completing the program, I was hired as a temp for Maximus, where I started all the call center floor for member eligibility. 15 months later, I had learned all the various member services skill sets and was promoted to a provider services CSR. 3 months later, I was catapulted into the internet specialist position on the knowledge management team, where I was hired as a permanent employee at that time. And 15 months after that, I was promoted to a senior specialist. And that was just a week or so prior to the COVID lockdown. Right around my 1-year silver anniversary date, I was approached by a coworker at Maximus, who also worked at the DRC. The director there at the time was Roscoe Hurley, and he had sent her to ask me if I'd be willing to come work there a couple nights a week. Of course, I said yes, and the rest is history. I worked there for 1 year, and then I took a year off. When the COVID lockdown was lifted, the DRC started having outside socially distanced meetings, and I just knew I wanted and needed to be a part of that. And so I returned, and I've been back ever since. The DRC is a place where everybody knows that they can not only come and be safe, but they can come and talk about anything that's going on with them without any kind of judgment. The DRC is my home, and the staff there are my family. I have been beneficially impacted by the amazing support system of people at both places of employment as we have continuously grown together. I have learned that we are all doing the best we can with the knowledge and skill sets that we have, and that we learn best from each other. This has been my greatest life journey. The DRC staff have taught me life skills that I couldn't have learned anywhere else. They taught me things like how to budget money, how to build my credit. They inspired me to go back to school. And they told me repeatedly that I was never too old and it was never too late to dream a new dream. They met me where I was at and have walked with me hand in hand every step of the way. Just in the last couple of months, I was able to attain a car and get my Massachusetts driver's license back. I don't think school, the car, or the license would have even been possible without the support of these amazing people. They have taught me how to stand. I am eternally grateful to all of them because without them in my life, I definitely wouldn't be where I am today. Thank you for letting me share.
Oh my gosh, Donna, that you're so courageous for doing that, and I think we would all agree that we'd prefer to hear from people that have made that progress, given all the all the past trials and tribulations and what you've been through. So thank you very much for sharing. We know that was hard. Thank you.
Thank you,
Andrew.
It's an honor to be able to speak with you all tonight. I go by Drew. I'm really happy that I get to talk about this just because ATR has helped me so much. A little background, I was a 17-year Army veteran, did 3 tours overseas. I always kind of been a heavy drinker, but when I got back from my last deployment and, my marriage wasn't going well, so, I would drink more, marriage would get worse, and it just was like one thing led to another. And I ended up getting a DUI, which kind of cut my career short. So, I came back home, I was down, depressed, and fell in with the wrong crowd, picked up crystal meth, and was using that for a while before I started selling it, trying to make ends meet. And wasn't long before I started having legal troubles. And, I basically was arrested by the DEA back in September 2020. But thankfully, I've gotten another chance. My lawyer was able to get a caseworker for me who, realized that I needed help. And they got me released out to the Casper House out in Somerville, which I can't thank them and Bay Cove enough for all the help they gave me and getting me back on my feet and kind of helping me with, establishing like new healthy, sober habits and, get myself right again. And that's where ATR came in, because I heard about that. I needed some vocational training because I thought I was going to be stuck, as a convicted felon. I was going to be stuck in just dead end, menial, low paying jobs. Wasn't going to had no real thoughts of having my own place to live or, having anything at that point. They figured I was stuck and, wasn't going to be doing much with my life. But through ATR, they did a work study program. So I was getting paid money, got into HVAC training program, certificate program out at Ben Franklin Institute of Technology through the ATR Divine Recovery Center. They gave me a great sober coach, Ryan. I can't thank him enough as somebody else to, kind of talk to about things and, just make sure I was staying on the right path. And, it was great because after getting through that certificate program, I, was able to get a great job as a maintenance tech in an apartment complex. I've worked there for about 5 months now and busted my butt, and now I got promoted to the lead tech. So I'm up around $70,000, $80,000 a year. Who would have thought that, just a couple months, not long ago. I was worried that I wasn't gonna be able to get a job because of my criminal past, but they took a chance on me and it worked out. And, I'm just happy now to be able to give back. Tomorrow I actually make 18 months sober. So I'm, everything's going really well. And it's just, taking advantage of, just the desire to get clean is not enough. You need other assistance. You need some help getting back on your feet because, sometimes that stigma is going to be there. And you need, these just people that are willing to help you out and, look out for you. And that's all it takes. And, I can't say enough about ATR and how great it is. And everybody over there has just been awesome And, it's a great resource if people take advantage of it and, just put the work in. And, hopefully everything should keep going well. I should hopefully get my license back here soon, looking at trying to get my own place to live. So it's, when you're doing the right thing, the good things happen. And that's, that's all I can say. And I just, hopefully I can continue to be an advocate for how well the program works.
Oh, we're so happy for you, Andrew. Thank you for Drew. Thank you for sharing. Appreciate it. All right, Dina, you're up next.
I'm up next. Hi, everybody. How's it going tonight? My name is Dina, and I am so happy to be here. My energy, if you know me, is always through the roof. But when I have to do things like this, I mean, it's triple that because of, the things that I've been through, and I am sitting here with everybody that worked just as hard as I did to get here. So thank you so much for having me. My name is Dina, and a week into my recovery, I went to Mom's Project, which is a one-stop shop for women that are in recovery that are looking for help, and they referred ATR. And at that time, I wasn't working, wasn't doing too well, trying to get back on my feet. It'd been since I worked and everything. For me to ATR, and ATR was able to give me, like Emily said, the basic things, but those basic things were things that I really needed and couldn't get on my own in early recovery. They helped me with bus passes. They helped me to get my ID back. They helped me with cleaning. And in turn, they offered me the opportunity to go to JBS. And of course, I took that opportunity because it allowed me to refresh my employment skills, how to write a resume, cover letter, all of those little things that I had been ripping and running for so long. I forgot how to do all of those things. I hadn't held a job in over 20 years. I picked up heroin when I was 29 years old. And for the next 20 to 30 years, that was my life. And at 50 years old, something changed, got hit in the head and said, you know what, I can't do this anymore. Decided to get clean, and 3 weeks into my recovery, I went to the Phoenix, and from that day, I've been there ever since. That was 2017. The Phoenix is a place where I can't even say enough about it, and not just because I work, but Phoenix has allowed me growth opportunity that's unbelievable. I started off as a team member, moved on to volunteer there for about a year, and I have been staff for last month was 3 years. I went from the front desk to community champion, and what that means is I do most of the outreach with local providers and anybody that I can get my hands on. I do workshops with certain groups like Project Place, Project Promise, anywhere that I can get my hands on something recovery related, I do it. The Phoenix is not just a gym. We are a sober community. So what that means is you need to get healthy mentally, spiritually. We will be there to help you with your recovery. We will be there to support you unconditionally, bring you to a safe, supportive community, and then we'll get you jacked while we're doing it. We have social events, we have volunteer opportunities, and that's what I do today. I'm the community champion, and I go above and beyond to give that title exactly what it deserves. I wouldn't have been able to come this if it wasn't for my humble beginnings with Mom Project and ACR, because you know what, they do so much. They do more than we realize, because when we go and we get so far back and it's like, wow, that's what helps me. I started. So you know what, to say that I am fortunate doesn't even put a stamp on it. So thank you to everyone that funds ATR, because it's not possible. I wouldn't be sitting here talking to you today. Thank you to the Phoenix for allowing me growing and making me your community champion. There was a time when I used to beat myself up, but today I know that I'm a good person and I know that I do good things. And I say that with the utmost humility, gratitude, and respect for everyone that enriches my life and everyone that I get to touch. So thank you so much. Namaste.
Namaste, Nina, thank you. So this is great, all the plugs for ATR, right, Danielle? So Step Rocks, Lorraine and others? Is Lorraine here?
Lorraine is here.
Oh, hey, Lorraine.
Good evening, everyone. You know, I'd like to thank Moore once again for inviting Step Rocks to speak. I'm Lorraine Barton, a woman in long-term recovery. You know, I want to say that my recovery was not linear. You know, there were some relapses there. There were issues addressing my mental health. But I applaud Moore for their continuing effort to address the gaps in substance use treatment, recovery services, advocacy, excuse me, and more. You know, I want to echo Dr. Burrell's encouragement in addressing stigma. You know, I was surprised at the amount of stigma that Step Rocks faced as we endeavored to open up our new center. I was really surprised. It became crystal clear that many people still do not understand the crucial part in work that recovery centers do throughout the Commonwealth. Before I came to Step Rocks, I was a woman in recovery, but living in isolation. Some of my illnesses bound me to my home. I didn't get out much anymore, but I was invited to come to Step Rocks for a meeting. And when I got there, I was able to immediately begin to build my recovery capital. I got engaged with all things Step Rocks. I volunteered. I became a stipend volunteer. And thanks to my friend Sunshine Scotty in the Transformation Center, I received training and became a certified peer specialist. Then I became a recovery coach. And I've been employed for Step Rocks, I think, 6 years at this point. In that capacity, I have seen the extreme need for ATR. The services provided through ATR is crucial to many members who have walked through our doors. Those who are trying to get back on their feet, whether they were coming out of treatment or they just came out of jail. Access to recovery provided a bridge, a helping hand, and the next step toward living recovery. The tangible services and resources that Emily Stewart spoke about are the very things that support and act as a catalyst towards healthy living. I hope to see ATR expanded with this new funding that's going to get. I hope to see it expanded into recovery centers. You know, maybe once a week they could, you know, come into a recovery center across, you know, the Commonwealth and be there for returning residents who are coming back to the communities from incarceration or from treatment. That's really what I like to see. Now, I see it as a partnership with the recovery centers in ATR to reach more and to be readily available for those who are in need. So ATR has helped so many over the years. We need them now more than ever. So let's get that money, get that money, get that money, get that money. Thank you.
Way to go, Dina. Thank you so much. I'm sorry, Lorraine. I was looking at Dina when I said that. I'm so sorry, Lorraine.
You're forgiven.
Is anybody else in Step Rocks?
Yeah. Hi.
Great. Hi. Thanks, Loretta.
Yeah. Hi. This is Loretta Leverett, and I'm the director of Step Rocks Recovery Support Center. And thank you, Moore, for inviting us. We are glad to be here. And I know we have a lot of other speakers, so I'm going to be brief, but I'm just going to speak a little bit about what we're trying to do around inclusion. You know, we speak about DEI, and we know what the acronym means, but I guess it's like, how do we do it? How do we make it happen? Where do we start? So we thought that we would start at a very relatable place with the medical professionals. And since that throughout our lives, we're engaged with the medical professionals where we go to address our health concerns. We wanted to take things a little further and provide an opportunity for medical professionals to come into the diversity of the underserved communities that many of their patients come from and get a better understanding of how to address the whole person. Inclusion has many meanings depending upon who you ask. We want to begin discussions in the community with those who have exclusive knowledge on how to best serve people who have been historically underserved, and how systemic barriers and access to opportunities can affect the person's well-being. So toward this end, Step Rocks embarked on collaborating with Harvard Medical School to create an engaging training program which would involve third and fourth year medical students coming to our center to learn from our community through their experiences to better be able to see individuals as a whole person rather than just a clinical diagnosis. These students are future providers and can use this discussion-based program to better understanding and help dispel the white coat barrier hierarchical structure that currently exists, as well as fostering understanding that we all experience things differently based on cultures, structures, and biases that we have been exposed to. So, you know, that's just a little bit about this program because it's early on, and the next time we have one of these forums, we'll be glad to expand on it. But we're just anxious to really be more involved in this, in DEI, because as I said, we're all talking about it, but often we just kind of like say, so how do we do this thing? So that's what we're doing. And thank you everyone for hearing us and listening. And and I'm going to stop talking because I know one time in early recovery, I remember saying that I get started and it's hard to land the plane. So I'm going to land the plane. Thank you.
Thank you for raising that, Loretta, and the fact that the grant that I'm coordinating, the Parent Project, the second goal for that is to be providing DEI training to all the peer recovery support centers across the state and recovery community organizations. So we look forward to working with you. Caitlin?
Hi, I'm Caitlin. I'm the outreach worker here at Step Rocks in Roxbury. And I'm just gonna go off of what Ms. Loretta was discussing with DEI. Another thing which you guys actually talked about in the beginning was the Nubian Square initiative, which we have been involved with from the beginning, which I am so grateful that they're there, because I feel like all the focus is on one area in our city and it's just so spread out and it's an issue everywhere. And when you look on the outside of it is where our people are there, like our people have been here from, you know, from childhood or whatever. They've just lived here their whole life and homeless, and they need the help too. So I'm just grateful that we get to be out there and doing the work with everybody else. And yeah, that's all. Like that.
Thanks, Caitlin. Thanks for sharing. You got some great stuff going on there at Step Rocks. We're excited to hear about everything. So next, recovery on the harbor at our recovery center in East Boston. John, are you with us? John Doring?
Kirsten, he might not be here. I know he had a problem getting on, so.
Oh, that's too bad. All right, thanks. There's just so many people on right now. It's hard to keep track of you all. All right, and then Room to Grow at Francis Shelter, St. Francis Shelter. Mike Griswold, is he with us?
How about Anthony?
Yeah, how about Anthony? Manzi from the Bridge in Malden?
Hi, guys.
Oh,
Hi.
good, Anthony, you're there.
How are you?
Good.
So hi, everyone. I'm Anthony Manzi. I'm the Assistant Director of the Bridge Recovery Center located in Malden, Mass. And even though I personally have not used or utilized like recovery centers in my journey or ATR, since I been able to work in one and do this journey in the last year, I've noticed how important and how valuable they really are. Since we opened our doors last year, I've seen the absolute need and vitality of community for the people we are serving, especially when they are trying to navigate life in sobriety. In my experience, the need for emotional support, the need for support and assistance when setting recovery goals and developing recovery plans, empowering someone to create a daily schedule which attracts recovery, building various friendships in different networks, forming and improving life skills, most importantly, gaining access to equitable services and resources, including mass rehab and ATR, especially after what we all experienced with COVID isolation. I've learned have a community that empowers authentic connections, that supports individual growth, by far will be the most powerful experience I'm able to walk away with at the Bridge. That's all I got.
Oh, good. All right, Anthony, thank you so much. Thank you guys for all highlighting your recovery centers and the work that you've been doing and hearing some of the stories. Donna, thank you. I really appreciate that story. So now I'm going to pass it on to Daniel O'Brien, and most people know her and love her as DOB. So welcome, Danielle.
Hi, everybody.
DOB.
I'm feeling pretty good. I got a lot of shout outs tonight, so that's really good. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Danielle O'Brien. I'm the Recovery Community Support Coordinator at the Bureau of Substance Addiction Services. And where I grew up, if your last name does not end with Y, they enforce a nickname upon you, which is why you hear DOB said. So I tried to dodge it all my life, and then once it sticks, it sticks. So, but it was great to hear from everybody tonight and to be on here with everyone. It's a hard act to follow when people from the center speak from the heart, like they just did. And that's why I like to stay connected to those folks, because they really know what's going on. And that is really where it's at. It was great to hear from the BSAS recovery centers. Of course, all the shout outs to ATR. I worked for ATR previously, so I saw firsthand the good work that it does. And I back up everything that was said about that because I saw it firsthand. Also the Phoenix that was raised up, who have been wonderful collaborators in peer work, connecting to the centers really right from the beginning. So it's great to be alongside folks from Phoenix who are really doing the work. And I heard some other centers on here as well, see some other centers on here as well. And I know this is a Boston forum, but it's really great to see so many recovery coaches and recovery centers from across the state represented on this forum, as well as so many of our friends and allies in the work. I was reflecting on how much has happened over the last 2 years. March of 2020, we were in such different space. And over the next few months after that, the way we provided services was just turned upside down. And the recovery center's ability to provide critical community support and connection was just altered completely. And I'd only been a BSAS a couple months at the time, so that was a whirlwind. But I have to say, you know, it was amazing to go through that with the group from peer recovery sports centers from across the state. If I had to suffer through that with anybody, I was with the right people, because their commitment and dedication to figuring out a way to provide services shine through. And at that time, around like March to May, we had 25 centers funded, but 16 of them were new, and many of them didn't even have a location yet. They weren't off the ground, nothing. So I'm proud to report that today we now have 25 centers open and serving folks throughout the Commonwealth, which is wonderful. And I feel fortunate, like I said, to have gone through this unprecedented time with the peer recovery support centers directors and staff. They came together new and old to form strong statewide network. That was the only silver lining really of the force to pivot and build capacity to leverage technology. But for us, it was a wonderful thing to have a director all the way out west supporting a director all the way southeast, thanks to technology. And the group's gotten really tight and they're very supportive of one another. The centers pivoted in various ways to ensure that their community receives services, and the new centers forged ahead with construction and onboarding and opening. And everyone was committed to the cause. And they did all this in the face of so much loss, the fears we were all facing and the uncertainty, because it's in their hearts, which is what makes this work so enjoyable for me, to be connected to folks that really are committed to this. And in the Boston region, since that's the forum where I'm going to focus on these guys for a minute, Recovery on the Harbor held its grand opening at its amazing location on Bennington Street in East Boston. They hosted their first Friendsgiving, inviting 2 other centers to participate in a large Thanksgiving dinner. Divine Recovery Center in South Boston erected a giant tent equipped with lights and heaters to continue to provide groups, meetings, and support day and night throughout the pandemic. Step Rocks engaged in community projects, created an app, and fought through the construction delays and stigma that Lorraine mentioned, which was really difficult, but they pushed through it. And I'm happy to report that they've opened their new space on Blue Hill Ave. So if you have not seen it yet, you got to go by there and check it out. It is amazing. Of course, Room to Grow, who never stopped and served hundreds of people a day downtown at St. Francis House through it all. I'd like to acknowledge the Bridge, because Anthony was just on here. They're not Boston, but they're close enough. So we're gonna pull them into this. You know, they had an amazing grand open right in the middle of this, and then continued to build, I don't know how, such a strong membership in spite of COVID. It was just amazing to see how much, how many groups, activities, how many people in the community got involved, even in the face of what was going on. And they've just come up with this new scan code, which I'm not going to get into it. I'll let Carrie Ann or Anthony do that in the future, but it's just mind blowing what they've done over there. And I feel like I'm saying all that because I don't want to have to say it again, because I feel like we're in new space. Like, I don't know if it's just me, but spring is upon us. The transmission rates are low, membership is growing, and I'm excited to head into this new chapter with all of you, where we can go back to peer-to-peer connection and community, reconnect with people, and welcome new peers and members in recovery. So I'm going to put the links to the centers in the chat for those of you who'd like to look for a center near you. And the question of the month is, when are the new centers coming? And I don't have a concrete answer for you. So what I will say is, we are getting very warm, so get ready and stay tuned on that. It's great to see a lot of coaches on here tonight. As I said, I'd like to end with just talking a little bit about the recovery coach learning communities. We call them the RCLC. There's so much going on in the field around peer work right now. It is really important that peer recovery coaches and recovery coach supervisors stay connected to one another. This is a great way to do so. They are statewide, regional network of coaches and recovery coach supervisors committed to upholding the fidelity to the peer coaching model, which we know is often at risk, and collaborating to expand knowledge, address concerns, and share resources. There's one in every region. They're currently held hybrid quarterly, and they provide an opportunity for coaches and supervisors to connect with colleagues, share resources, collaborate, stay aware of recent developments in the profession, very important. Inform the facilitators of the groups on the needs and trends in the field right now to get that information to us to shape policy. Gives you a chance to learn about tools, best practices, have discussions on things like certification and licensure, be aware of events, and also to really provide and receive support in the work from each other, because no one quite understands the joys and challenges of coaching than another coach. So I hope you all will take a chance to go onto the RC Hub, which is the website for coaches, provides access to training. It provides tools and resources, which we continue to build out now. We're on to 2.0, so that's exciting. But really, it gives you a chance to plug right into your regional recovery coach learning community and find out when the next meetings are. And I'm just going to end with, I'm excited to say we are working with Dr. Achara, who's a national consultant that supports states and cities throughout the country in the development of recovery-oriented systems of care. And I look forward to the work with the centers around this who continue to build out strong recovery communities throughout the Commonwealth. There is amazing work being done, but there's also great opportunities. And I feel like I said earlier, as we come into this new phase of things opening up, it's a great time to really try to do that community building work. And because if I've learned anything in this work, it is the power that lies when the recovery and local community, treatment allies, friends, and families come together and wrap around individuals who are in early recovery, that amazing things happen. So I look forward to the future together with all of you in this work. Thank you.
Thank you, Danielle. You are an amazing, amazing person. I remember when you were working part-time at Divine, and you were, I believe your livelihood was a carpenter at that point. And here you are building recovery all over the place. Yes. And then speaking of that, I want to acknowledge that there are 3 legislators here, and we're going to be hearing from them. We have Representative Balzer that has a couple of bills, as well as Senator John Keenan, Representative Maya, Representative Madaro. And so we've got a lot of good things to talk about. Speaking of the recovery centers, it was Representative Balzer who is going to be speaking on the next 2 bills that are up there that actually promoted the way to from the MCAS recommendation of recovery centers and BSAS's strategic plan. So we are going to thank her for that, because look at this, 25 recovery centers. It's a beautiful, beautiful thing. But what about treatment versus prison? Representative Balzo, would you take the way? And we're also going to be hearing from Lisa Newman-Polk, who actually her experience led the way for this bill. And then we're going to hear from Joe, who's going to give some real life experience. So go ahead, Rep. Balzer.
Thank you, Marianne. It's great to see you. It's great to be here as we are together every year at this time, sometimes in person, sometimes virtual, but it's just good to be together. And you're remembering the years when I chaired the Mental Health and Substance Committee with our good friend Steve Tolman, who was a state senator then and now heads the labor movement, but we worked together with you going back to then. So I really do want to talk about the 2 bills you asked me to talk about. So let me just say it really is great for me to have heard from so many people tonight, who are in recovery. And that's the bills I'm going to talk about are really, to help folks, have the kind of opportunities for change and growth in their life. Let me mention, is it right if I mention section 35 first, and then we'll go
ahead.
Okay, good. Well, just because I know Lisa and the others will talk about treatment, not punishment as well. So that way it'll fit. Let me just say that as a legislator, one of my top priorities has been and continues to be what I talk about as the decriminalization of addiction. It causes tremendous, it's just mind-blowing, I guess is the only way to say it, that we criminalize addiction. And so I go around saying what to everyone on this call is obvious, but to some people it's still not, which is that addiction is not a crime, it's an illness. And we, as everyone on this call knows, have a law in the state called Section 35, which allows a court to send someone whose addiction is so serious that they're at risk of harm to themselves or others. They can be sent to involuntary treatment. Massachusetts is the only state in the country whose laws say that if the healthcare beds are full, you can send those folks who are civilly committed to a prison. Supposedly for treatment. The only state in the nation whose laws say that. And so if anything is criminal, it's not addiction, it's sending people who are sick to prison. That's criminal, in my opinion. And so I'm working very hard to pass a bill number H2066, which would prohibit sending anyone who's civilly committed for addiction to a facility that's run by the criminal justice system, and would require instead that they go to centers that are part of the healthcare system. The legislature did that some years ago for women. We no longer send civilly committed women to MCI Framingham, but we still send men to MASAC and to Hampden County Sheriff's Shop. And we want to stop that. And I want to just add, in addition to my legislation, which I hope you'll all write letters in support of, H2066, the governor has put in his budget proposal money for MASAC and Hampden County. And I am urging the House to not support that. We should not be putting money into those facilities. We should be putting that money into the kind of community-based services that I heard folks on this call describe so eloquently and movingly. That's where we should be putting state funds. So that's H2066 and Section 35. And the other bill, which I'm going to talk about, and you're going to hear some others on this panel talk about, is H1462, treatment, not punishment. This too is about decriminalizing addiction. What this bill is about is how when someone's on probation, they might have a relapse, because what we know, and was mentioned by some of the folks who spoke before me, is, I mean, relapse is part of the illness. Relapse happens. And what this bill would say is that you can't be yanked back into prison. That cannot be viewed as a violation of probation, is just using again. It doesn't say that if, when the person relapses, they also get involved with criminal behavior. That's another question. But a relapse in itself should not be a violation of probation. And so our bill, treatment, not punishment, would make sure that someone who is struggling with their illness and has a relapse, to make sure they get help, not punishment. So I hope folks on this call will support both of those bills. And I applaud you for the work you're all doing, and I value our partnership and friendship.
Thank you, Rep. Alzer. We value you. And speaking of Section 35, Tyshawn Perryman has a story. Tyshawn, are you here?
Yes, I'm here, Mary.
Oh, good.
Yeah. I wanted listening to the people from the recovery center, man. It's like awesome. It's great to hear. I'm like Dina. Is when I get into this gathering with so many people, I get very passionate, right? Very passionate, because I recognize where I come from, you know, the adversity and everything that I had to overcome to get to this point right here. So I'm going to be talking about Representative Bowles' bill, H2066. This is part of my written testimony that I did in front of the legislation, maybe about a month or two back. And it's talking about my experience with Section 35 and having to section my father. My experience with Section 35 is deeply personal. I had to petition for a Section 35 commitment for my own father, as after his issues with mental health and substance use grew out of control. As a family, we face the stigma of sending a loved one into captivity against their own will, a stigma faced by others in the African-American community who want to get help for their family. Filing that petition for my father was the hardest thing I ever had done in my life. In the courtroom, I remember looking at him as he experienced shame, bewilderment, nothingness, all at the same time, knowing that involuntary commitment to prison was not the answer. He was supposed to be there for treatment, but instead my father, a 65-year-old Army veteran who had to live in a cell under the supervision of prison guards. He even had to spend a large piece of his Social Security check to make expensive phone calls. He was not treated like a patient, he was treated like he was guilty of a crime. Being treated that way did not help him. He relapsed 2 days after he was released. Commitment in a prison or jail is psychologically counterintuitive for Black men who are already victimized by mass incarceration and do not experience a feeling of rehabilitation in a prison environment. Prisons and jails are not the place we would send a patient with any other disease besides addiction. So why do we keep doing it? These bills would change Section 35 so that other people who need help and are held under this law do not have the same experience as my father and will receive the care that they need outside of the prison system. So that's part of the testimony. And I just want to say before I go is one thing that just kept going through my head when thinking about this is that Section 35 individual to prison traumatizes the person who's already traumatized. And I just thought that in my mind, I was like, that is so crazy that you are being traumatized while you're already traumatized. And so, you know, I just thought that that was crazy. But that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you, Tyshawn. And that story will help us all to take more action on this. Much appreciated. And what about Lisa Newman-Polk and the treatment versus punishment bill?
Thank you so much, Marianne. I'm so happy to be here. And I think that what I want to say really follows up well on what Tyshawn was just speaking about, which is prison, jails, quote, correctional settings are not the place for people who are in need of recovery. So the bills that I am really pushing that you please contact the Judiciary Committee chairs ASAP, because the extension was to April 15th, and we really want to get these out of the Judiciary Committee. It's House Bill 1462, which Representative Balzer was so grateful is sponsoring, and then Senate Bill 1035. There's a fact sheet that I have to correct those numbers on that I sent to Marianne, and we'll do that. So what's this bill about? This bill is that if somebody is on probation and they have conditions of probation that require them to be, quote, drug-free, and they're dealing with an addiction, they should not be incarcerated when there is what unfortunately is often an expected relapse. And the reason that this bill came about is I brought a case in the Supreme Judicial Court arguing that it is unconstitutional to incarcerate a person for having a symptom of a mental disorder, essentially. Substance use disorders in the DSM-5. I think everybody here recognizes that it's a medical condition and we should not be criminalizing people for being symptomatic. But too often what happens in the court system is that people are ordered to be drug-free. And when you're dealing with an addiction, as I think I'm preaching to the choir, it is not so easy as a judge just telling you, don't use, right? If it was as easy as being ordered by a court or a judge to stop using drugs, I always say we'd have a cured nation. And we obviously don't have that. So as has been talked about by so many people with lived experience, recovery is often not linear. People have different ways into recovery, and it's been really wonderful to hear people talk about their different paths with wonderful, compassionate supports and having resources and recovery supports to actually make it. And when we interrupt that process by sending people to jail, we're doing something entirely counterproductive, which I hope everybody in this meeting agrees with. But essentially what happened for me is that I'm both a lawyer, a longtime public defender, and a clinical social worker. So I represent a lot of people with these orders who would then end up violating the condition of probation by using, 1 week into their probation. And years ago in the beginning, I'd be like, what's wrong? Why can't you just not use? You're going to go to jail. And quickly came to understand, of course, it's not that easy as just telling somebody not to use. Then when I went into clinical work and detoured, into the clinical field, I worked with a lot of people on probation and parole, and I became really sickened by the process of being a clinician in a community clinic and having to report test results for drug testing to probation officers, knowing that my clients and people I was working with were going to end up going potentially to jail as a result of that. And so what I saw is, of course, that people end up not showing up to treatment, which is really problematic. And people don't feel like they can be honest in treatment. And so what are we doing in treatment if people can't be honest? And that is the biggest thing. Everybody needs to be able to come to their therapist, to their recovery coach, to their doctor, and be able to talk candidly about what's going on. But if you have the court weighing over you, and you know that talking honestly means that you could go to jail, an entirely traumatizing, counterproductive environment, which I've seen firsthand, not from lived experience, but from work lived experience, because I worked at Susan Baranowski Correctional Center as a mental health clinician and watched all the degradation, the dehumanization, and 48 out of 50 clients at any given time that I worked with had an addiction and they weren't getting any better. That's not what we need to be doing for people. So I'm really passionate about this issue. I really want this bill to get passed. We really need help to put some pressure on to get this out of committee. It's been given an extension, so we have some space, but please, please contact Rep. Day and Senator Eldridge and let them know that it is so important to move this bill forward. Senate Bill 1035, House Bill 1462, and thank you so much, everyone.
Thank you, Lisa. We admire your compassion and we share it. Yes. Great. And Joe, let's hear from Joe Riggs.
Thanks more for organizing this Boston Policy Forum. Thank you, Representative Balzer, for being the lead sponsor for these bills. H 1462, which I'm speaking on at this time, and Representative Balzer is my representative, so thank you twice. And every time I get settled down and non-emotional, somebody says something that touches my heart, and I get emotional again. Lisa, thank you for all your work. So it really touches me. And then Chris and Drew and Dina and Donna and man, it's powerful stuff. And that's because of how grateful I am for my recovery. And I've been there and I know what it feels like. And anybody new on this meeting that might be new in recovery or trying to find out, we're all here just trying to improve supports for you. I mean, this is why we do what we do, is to share the hope that we found. I'm in long-term recovery, and as a result of finding recovery, I've gone on to earn PhD in biomedical research, and I'm a scientist out of Department of Neurology, Massachusetts General Hospital and Harvard Medical School. But I don't speak based on science at this. I speak based on my lived experience. Although I think science has shown that this is a medical public health issue and not a justice or criminal justice or criminalization approach towards helping people. My 20s, I was in and out of jail. I mean, it's just you pick the year, and it was get caught with possession, go to jail, get out on probation, relapse, run until I got caught, and then rinse and repeat for nearly a decade. Never was it an option for me to go into probation office and say, I relapsed, I made a mistake, I don't want, I need help. That is unfathomable, and the fact that we're even talking about that possibility is revolutionary. And they never matched what my issue, the symptom of my illness was that I would, use, and I didn't have support. So, in the treatment, it was always through the silver bracelets. So, that's why I believe in the treatment non-imprisonment bill so much, because it will provide a pathway for somebody that wants help to get the help. It puts compassion over punishment. It says each life has value. It allows us to get help sooner than later. So I will echo what Lisa was saying. This is an important bill that we got to get everybody to advocate for and to write their elected officials, and to get this out of committee and favorably reviewed, and hopefully people will have an opportunity that I found to pursue their dreams. So, anyways, that's why I care about this bill so much. Thank you, everybody.
Joe, it's so wonderful to know you and see you where you are today. And we have faith and hope. This is all good. Thank you, Joe. You've been a tremendous advocate. We really now want to hear from Senator John Keenan and Representative Malia and about the licensing for recovery coaches. And then we'll hear from Kim Krosick, who's our more recovery coach supervisor. So do we have Senator Keenan or Representative Malia here?
Sure. Good evening. Hi, everybody.
Oh, hi.
How are you?
Good.
Great to see you.
Very good. Good to see you.
Nice to see you too. It's great to see everybody. And I just want to start by saying to Donna, to Drew, to Dina and Lorraine and Loretta and Tyshawn and Joe and all those that spoke tonight, we very much appreciate you sharing your stories. As legislators, we have lines on budgets, we get letters and less in the mail now, more by email. And they really don't tell the real story of recovery. And so coming on here tonight and hearing your stories really is inspiring and motivates me. And I don't want to speak for my colleagues, but I know it does for them too. It really motivates us to get to work and do the best that we can to pass these important pieces of legislation. So you're our motivation. And I think it was Drew who said, desire is not enough. And Drew's right. He said, desire is not enough. People need assistance. And that is so true. And so we, as legislators, will do everything we can to provide that assistance. And I just want to speak briefly and thank Rep. Balzer and Rep. Madaro and Liz Malia, the best. She's been just so great to work with over all these years. But we've got some work to do, and I know she's rolling up her sleeves and she's gonna get it done. And so, just briefly on the bills that Rep. Balzer talked about, and I'll talk about some of the bills that a couple of the bills that we've got filed. But Rep. Balzer is so right. I did some public defender work for a while, and one of my first cases was going down into the docket and seeing this young man, older boy, in the lockup covered with blood. And he had put his hand through a window, and his parents had to call the police. And it was a mental health issue with some substance mixed in, if my recollection is. And I thought, this young guy, he doesn't belong in this cell block sitting in the corner of a cold cell. He needs so much more than that and deserves so much more than that. And, as conditions of pretrial conditions or conditions of probation go, and Rep. also said it, it's a medical issue. It's not a criminal issue. And we, instead of locking people up, we should be lifting them up. When they relapse, it shouldn't be put them back in the cell and lock them up. It should be, how can we help? Let's lift people up together. And I think that's really how we've got to look at this. But I want to thank again everybody for sharing their stories tonight. They really are so inspiring. So I, along with Rep. Molly, we filed a couple of bills. One is a bill that we've been working on for a while now. It's providing access to the full spectrum of addiction treatment. I call it kind of the 30-day bill. It would require insurance companies to provide coverage for the full range of addiction treatment. Since we filed the bill, things have gotten better in terms of how insurance companies are providing coverage. And just yesterday, I was at a treatment facility talking with the folks there, and they said it has gotten better since the 14-day bill was passed several years ago. But there's still some insurance companies that are really hesitant to provide the full range coverage for the full range of treatments. And so that's what this bill is designed to do. While some may be doing it, we want to make sure that they're all doing it. And I don't remember who it was that had talked earlier. I think it was Drew who talked about, methamphetamine. And that's becoming a bigger issue in Massachusetts than it has in the past. It's been pretty widespread across the country, but it's really we're starting to see more of it here. And insurance companies haven't quite figured out how to work with providers to make sure that the appropriate recovery services are in place, because it's different than treating opioid addiction. And so we want to make sure that insurance companies, when it comes to treatment for methamphetamine addiction, are going to do the right thing as well. So that is House Bill 2116 and Senate Bill 1292. And then we also have a recovery coach licensing bill, and I'll let Rep. Malia talk on that. But they're both really, I think, important pieces of legislation, and combined with the work that Rep. Balzer and others are doing, I think we can get something done this session. I'm hopeful. The stigma issue, stigma is still there, but I see that dropping, and I see people recognizing that the way that addiction has been handled in the past it just didn't work, and it has to change. And Tyshawn talked about sectioning his father. My father, we got to the point where we were all sitting in the room, 7 children and my father, saying, "Dad, it's time. You got to do something. You can't do this on your own." And my brother, who's a police officer, he's a police chief now, he's a police officer at the time, said, "Dad, we're going to have to put the handcuffs on you and take you to court." And he had a brother, and he's had nephew. My father had a brother and nephews who struggled with alcohol addiction, and the fear of that in that case was enough to get him to say, "Fine, okay, I'll go to treatment." But it shouldn't come to that. It shouldn't be. There shouldn't be fear for somebody who's seeking help. Shouldn't be fear for a family member trying to help a family member. It should be treatment available upon demand. That when somebody is ready, or somebody is at the point where they're a danger to themselves or other, that you do not have to go through a criminal process. It just should be an open door to treatment. And I think that's what we're all looking to, the point that we're all looking to get to. Treatment on demand, treatment with dignity, lifting people up, recognizing the nature of addiction, and doing everything that we can to get rid of stigma, and to people realizing that there are different paths to recovery. And there are, even for those people who are still actively or in the throes of addiction, there are different paths, and there are things that we have to do for them as well in terms of harm reduction and making sure that they have access to all those programs. So we have a lot to do, and what you've shared tonight really I find so inspiring, and I can't wait to get to work tomorrow at the State House and get back on these issues. We were talking about a few of them today as a follow-up to my going to one of the treatment centers yesterday. So just we need your help, and we're here to help. I think together that we will get some of these things across the finish line and take some really important steps to helping people, to providing assistance and to lifting people up in recovery. So again, thank you for all that you do, and more, Mary Ann, thank you for what your organization does. Really great work. So together, I think you hope this will be a really good year. Thank you.
Up with a good year and lifting people up. Very good. Thank you so much, Senator Keenan. And Representative Liz Malia.
The best.
Oh, of course.
Thank you.
Both the best, as well as Rep. Madaro.
Thank you, Senator
and
Keenan.
Rep. Balzer.
Thank you, everyone. I just have to say that sitting here through the majority of the meeting has been an incredible experience for me, because having worked on some of these issues and chaired the mental health, substance use and recovery committee for about 10 years, and working with my colleagues, Senator Keenan and Rep. Balzer, I've just learned so much, and I don't think I would have believed when I first got into this business about 25 years ago that we would see the kinds of changes that have happened. And a lot of this is because of the recovery community sticking together, and people like us following our shepherd, Mary Ann at Moore, and listening to the voices of our brothers and sisters who are also struggling with this disease, and who some of us who are in long-term recovery, understanding that having lost loved ones. I lost a sister and years ago, and this past year lost a good friend, the sister of a very good friend, to the disease. It never ceases to amaze me what an incredibly overwhelming problem we have, and the fact that we have not been able to get all the resources to the table. But we're working on it, and I think what Senator Keenan said is we're making some major progress at this point in time. And I'm just happy to be along as part of the team. But I do have to say, I thought about the Faulkner Hospital and how I missed that room and how everybody was all crammed in there together. And maybe that wouldn't be a good thing now with our pandemic, but I've learned so much from everybody in this community. And I'm hoping that we have some luck with the piece of legislation, an act relative to recovery coach licensure with Senator Keenan and myself, and an act relative to full spectrum of treatment. You know, it's taken a long time to build the structure that will the infrastructure that we need to begin to deal with this public health crisis in a realistic way. And I think one of the things that makes me recommit and stay focused is the fact that we lost so many people during the pandemic, but the statistics are the number of people who were lost to overdoses really skyrocketed during that period of time, and none of us saw and heard much about that. And I think we have to get back. We don't know what's going to happen with the pandemic, but we know we've got work to do around recovery. So we have about 20 people signed, 20 legislators signed on to the recovery coach licensure bill. And I'm very hopeful. As Senator Keenan said, there's some good progress being made. It's a little different to be in the State House without all of our networks and without seeing Mary Ann every day when the bills come up to be heard, but and getting her support. But we're going to get there. And I just want to say thank you to everyone who's put so much of their energy in their life into this work. It is making a major difference. Thank you.
Thank you, Rep. Melia. We've known each other for a very, very long time. So I'm so appreciative of all the work that you have done. And speaking of licensing for recovery coaches, our very own Kim Prozik was on the Recovery Coach Commission, and she's going to just share a little bit about the bill.
Yeah.
Kim, take it away.
Thank you, Mary Ann. And hi, everyone. My name is Kimberly Prozik. I'm a woman in long-term recovery. My pronouns are she, her, and hers. And I'm super on fire right now after listening to everyone. How awesome. We can't do this alone. So I feel really a part of the community, as I always do at these events. So about the act relative to recovery coaching bill, it's House Bill 2382 and Senate Bill 1452. In 2018, Governor Charlie Baker signed the CARES Act to build upon the opioid crisis. Under that bill, there were several commissions, one being the Recovery Coach Commission. The Recovery Coach Commission then had listening sessions all over the state and more facilitated Recovery Coach Commission strategy committee meetings. And during those meetings, we reviewed every meeting that the commission held, listening sessions, and did related surveys. We believe that the Recovery Coach Commission responded in good faith, believing that the commission captured what we thought the body heard. We still meet and review. The committee spent hours reviewing the license bill that was proposed. After much debate, we came up with the following request for change that is now in the current bill. A 12-member board will operate within the Massachusetts Department of Public Health, and including the following: the Commissioner of Public Health or a designee, the Commissioner of Mental Health or a designee, 6 members who are employed as a recovery coach supervisor, or an educator representing demographic diversity in regions, workplace, gender identification, culture, or race, a family member of someone with substance use disorder, one member representing a health plan, a licensed physician or nurse specializing in addiction, a person with lived experience from substance use disorder that has received recovery coaching services, and a license, oh, I said that already. Good, and part of that bill, we changed to good moral character of recent history qualifications, lived experience, and under the lived experience, licensed recovery coaches must demonstrate at least 2 years of sustained recovery. The life experience requirement may be waived for family members or other allies who are credentialed by the Massachusetts Board of Substance Abuse Counseling Certification before the establishment of the board. And a grandfathering or test exempt period will happen. Our plan is to visit with all spoke members of the recovery coach learning communities and recovery coach hubs across the state. And the current bill now is in the Joint Committee on Healthcare Financing. A hearing will be taking place and there's no date has been made yet. If this passes, the committee will go to the House floor, Senate floor, and then the governor hopefully will sign into legislation. Why do we support this? Really important. It creates a standardization, a streamlined and regulated process for recovery coaching. It also assures reimbursement for payers. This act supports efforts to recognize recovery coaching as part of a behavioral health workforce that increases the availability of peer-to-peer recovery support services. We want you guys involved. We want to hear from all of you, and remember our mantra, nothing about us without us. So get involved. Let's hear your voices. This is really important. And that's it. Thank you, guys.
Yay, Kim, thank you. Very good. We're going to also hear from the Safe Injection Site Committee, and then hear a little bit from Casa Esperanza about the reentry service. But before that, I just would like to have Representative Adrian Madaro, who's the Mental Health, Substance Use and Recovery Chair, say a few words. I see your name. Oops.
Thank you, Marian.
Oh, hey.
Hey, how are you?
Very good.
Sorry, juggling bedtime with the little one.
Of course.
But so good to thank you for having me. Really happy to be joining you all for the 19th Annual Public Policy Forum of MORE. Again, my name is Adrian Model, proud to be the state representative of the 1st Suffolk District, which is East Boston, and equally as proud to be serving as the House Chair of the Joint Committee on Mental Health, Substance Use and Recovery. I have some big shoes to follow with Representatives Balzer and Malia, who committee in years past. I do want to thank my colleagues, Representatives Fluker Oakley, Balzer, Malia, and Senator Keenan for speaking this evening. And it's been incredibly inspiring to hear from all of you with lived experiences, whether it's yourselves, your family members. That's so important that we hear those perspectives. And it really does humanize the issues that we work on in the State House. As you all know, behavioral health concerns, including substance use, have significantly increased during the pandemic. We've seen alarmingly high levels of overdoses and overdose deaths in the past couple of years. Many in recovery need additional support due to the stresses of the pandemic and the disruptive role it's played in all of our lives. However, the reality is too many individuals and families right now do not have enough options when seeking resources or treatment. We see this particularly in the workforce crisis and the lack of peer support opportunities. So in response, we as legislators at the State House must act to prioritize services for those currently using or in recovery. And, while pandemic aeration quickly worked to address concerns related to access to take-home doses and increased funding for supports, there is still so much work to do as we seek to build out of this pandemic. And your voices and experiences are absolutely critical to our work in passing legislation that benefits those currently using or in recovery. And with your support and your partnership, we'll be able to address this public health crisis and ensure timely and appropriate services for all. The power of the recovery community is absolutely evident in an event like this, but also every day. And I'm so grateful to be here with you all tonight, to have the opportunity to listen, learn, and just be in the space with you. So thank you so much. And I really look forward to our future work and partnership.
Excellent. Thank you so much. We're so glad that you're here. And your words are inspiring. And now we're going to be inspired by Gary Langis, Jim Stewart, and Carl Scartino as they talk to us about the safe injection site bill and what it looks like in Massachusetts that I think is in the Mental Health, Substance Use, and Recovery Committee. Take it away. Do we have Jim, Gary?
Yeah, I'm here. Yeah.
Oh, good. You've been patient.
Oh, well, no more than anybody else. So H2088, and I always forget the Senate number, excuse me, S1272. I put H2088 in the chat. It's up on your website. The toolkit that was prepared by Stigma Now is also up on your website. It provides you with a lot of different materials that you can look at, try to educate yourself, learn some more specifics. I also posted further up in the chat some documents. I'm going to put another one in there right now. Give me a second.
Of course.
Oops, anyway, I'll keep trying to do that. But the documents show that the safe consumption sites, wherever they've been set up, have been not only successful at saving lives, but they reduce the amount of injection-related HIV and hepatitis. You probably all saw the story last week in the Globe about how HIV injection rates amongst homeless IV drug users are up in the Boston area. I was hoping that Dr. Burrell would hang on the call long enough for us to ask her about what they're doing to try to help address that. Safe consumption sites have also been proven all across the globe to increase participation in treatment. Not everybody who goes to a safe consumption site immediately gets involved in treatment, but the studies are pretty consistent. Somewhere between 33 and 35% of people who get connected to a safe consumption service center participate in treatment or some other kind of positive life, self-care program. They also are documented across the globe to reduce the amount of injection-related detritus. In New York, where the only safe consumption site in the United States is operating right now, they have a study that they did with the Department of Public Health in New York. On a month, they used to find 13,000 syringes in a park adjacent to the safe consumption site. It's down to 1,000. So that's, sorry, I don't do math, but that's an amazing difference in the amount of drug-related detritus. Since there's only been a safe consumption site open in the United States for about a little more than 2 months, there isn't a lot of information available about the incidences of crime or drug use in the communities that host them. In other countries, there's no evidence that indicates that drug-related crime or any other kind of crime goes up in communities that host them. There's a study done, which I'm still trying to post in the chat here, I'll keep trying, which shows that in a community that had a clandestine safe consumption site, it wasn't, since it's illegal in every place but New York to do this, it wasn't a publicly known one. They did a study about rates of drug use and crime in the community that this site was located in. And there was no indication that the rates of crime in the community that hosted this secret safe consumption site was happened at all. After about 7 years working on this, it sometimes seems to me like, what more do we need for people to understand that this is something that needs to be part of the response that we're bringing to the problem of substance use and overdose, because what the constellation, the configuration of services we have now ain't getting it done, right? We've been trying different things. It's not getting it done. And so I just think it's, particularly given the numbers are all going up, that this needs to be added to the toolkit so we can try to make this happen. So if you have an opportunity in the next couple of weeks, month or so, get in touch with your rep, get in touch with your senator to say, hey, we got to get 2088 passed. We got to get Senate Bill S 1272 passed. And we got to make sure that leadership understands that this is a priority, that if we're going to have any credibility on addressing this problem, we need to use the tools that are being used all across the globe. You know, and just 100, how many miles is it to New York City? 150 miles, less than that. You know, about 130 something miles, whatever it is from the State House. Lives are being saved every week. Dozens of lives are saved every week. You know, haven't we seen enough to know that this is going to be? Anyway, I'm gibbering on. I'll give up my time. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Jim. Much appreciated. You know, we had to grow along with this whole move ourselves, and we're all about saving lives at this point. And as we said earlier, you can't get to recovery if you're dead. So, and that's the main thing. Gary or Carl, would you like to share at this point?
Sure. Gary, are you here as well? It's Carl.
I'm here, Carl.
Go for it, Gary.
I'll go and Carl can close it out. Yes. Yeah. You know, like most people have been, you know, like I know we all work with folks that are in early recovery and things like that, you know, but for the last, like I was introduced to harm reduction in the mid 80s, and by being introduced to harm reduction practices back then, it gave me the ability to make some choices in my life. And I was in pre-contemplative stages. Do you remember that? The 12, you know, like the stages of change. Well, there's one pre-contemplative stage of change, which a lot of folks overlook for years. You know, like when they want help, they're going to come knocking at my door. Well, you know, harm reduction taught me something else. So, you know, I work with people who use drugs, and I've been doing that for more than 30 years now. And you talk about stigma, it's really alive and well. It's out there for all of us, but like people are using, like, you see what happens with them. And you know, I got into these conversations probably around 1999 about the safe consumption sites. And you know, you ask, what is it in it for my neighborhood? Because I know, like most neighborhoods that we want to put a methadone clinic in, a syringe exchange program in, it always was a battle. It was a battle for years and years to get that stuff through, and we just got it through. The stigma is still with it. The stigma still remains. But, you know, I asked myself today, after I went through my 27 years of contemplation, pre-contemplation, like, you know, there's many, I could have caught many diseases. I could have died. I could have done like a lot, like what happened to my family members, what's happened to many of my friends. So, you know, right now at this stage of the game, I look and I've had like 9 grandchildren. All right. I have 9 grandchildren, and I ask, what do I want them to witness when they walk down the street? Do I want them to witness people shooting dope in their car, in an alley, behind a dumpster? No. Do I want to like let a person leave my office that's nodding and find them outside behind the dumpster blue at 5 o'clock when I'm leaving? No. You know, and you know, these consumption sites, overdose prevention sites, consumption sites, whatever you want to call them, it's an engagement strategy to engage folks who are unengaged, who are in the pre-contemplative stages of change, that we can talk to, we can connect with, and do all, you know, provide services for people. You've talked about it all night long, like to get services for treatment, you go to jail. Well, what do you think you get for services if you're still using, you're still shooting dope? Like, you know what, you're out behind the dumpster, you know. And I'd like to see that change, you know, and I've been talking about it for a long time. I'd like to see people like have a place to go to be treated with a little bit of dignity, with a little bit of respect, and you know, like let them know that they're cared for and that we care about those, our folks. And it doesn't do anybody any good having people inject drugs in our restaurants, in our parks, in our alleys, any place like that. It hurts the economy of Massachusetts with tourism. Who wants to walk through the public gardens and watch somebody overdosing, like happened years ago when we were doing this stuff around 2005, 2006, like slapped on the front page of the Herald. A person who was in an overdose, he could have been saved. He died because people just watched. They didn't know what to do. If he was in the care of a supervised consumption facility, on the other hand, he would have had people there ready to reverse an overdose. There's never been a fatal overdose in a supervised consumption site any place in the world since they started more than 20 years ago. So the science is there. I know I don't want my relatives coming into town and have to walk through and witness that, so this is good for businesses. Like when I hear businesses complain about this stuff, I say, well, your bathroom is being used right now as a facility to shoot dope. That's what the real deal is. Do you want to cut down on that stuff? It's bad for business if somebody pulls somebody that's deceased out of your bathroom, and again, it's to I'm selfish, so my grandchildren can walk down the street and feel safe and not have to witness people at one of the lowest times of their lives, like stuck in a car or in an alley or something. I don't want my grandchildren to ask me, what's that person stick a needle in their arm for? No, I don't want to answer those questions. There's a lot of other things I like to talk about with my grandkids, around fishing and going out and enjoying life. So, I support any move toward a consumption site, because the stigma we've all talked about tonight, that goes back to the 1870s with our first opioid laws, directed toward the Chinese population, because our policy, drug policy, is really been racially motivated from years and years ago, and it sticks with us today. And we've demonized a whole population of folks. We've demonized drug users to the point where, when I first started this work, I remember law enforcement coming up to me and saying, Gary, it'll be better off if they all die, if they die of AIDS, because then we won't have the drug problem. We don't have this, we don't have that. If the option is death, I don't, I can't go with that. I'm sorry, because I've witnessed death too much. And these are important bills. And Carl's going to give you some of the numbers and names and run the bills down to you now. Thanks for allowing me to share.
Thank you, Gary. Carl.
Thanks, Jim. First, I want to say thank you to you, Marianne, and to Moore, because we've been faced with this line of logic from people in the community in opposition to supervised consumption sites, in opposition to harm reduction in general, that there's this false choice between recovery and harm reduction, and recovery and supervised consumption site, and recovery and syringe exchange programs. It's a false choice. So I just applaud you for even engaging in this conversation tonight and thinking about how this is really a part of a continuum of care and continuum of services to help people along their journey to recovery. I come to this work. My mom is celebrating her 31st sobriety anniversary in a week and a half. I celebrate it every year with her, but I've also lost another family member and a cousin in the last few years to opioid overdoses. And we've all seen the tragedy that's unfolded. As has been referenced earlier, we're losing about 2,000 people a year in Massachusetts to overdose deaths. And Marianne, you said it well, there is no hope for recovery if you're dead. There's just no, that is what we're talking about, is literally saving lives. I work at Fenway Health. We have a history of focusing on the LGBTQ community as an underserved population. We also operate a drug user health program, a comprehensive drug user health program, including syringe exchange, Narcan, a drop-in center. The limitation of what we can do right now is when someone is ready to use, they can be in our space, they can get testing, they can get Narcan, they can get support and services, they can get connection to treatment and referrals. But the moment they're ready to use, they have to go back out into the streets, into our bathrooms, into our alleys, into wherever they can go. And that's what they're using alone, and they're dying. That is insane. That is just insane. We know with opioid overdoses, People have said it very well. Recovery is not a linear experience. So when people go in and out of recovery and relapse, we're there in a syringe exchange program to meet them where they are. Where they are on their journey might be literally on the streets and actively using. We have to keep them HIV cleared, Hep C cleared, access to Narcan, but we can't meet them where they are when they're ready to use. We have to send them back out into the streets. That is just insane. So just a short version, this bill, House 2088, Senate 1272, filed by Senator Sear, Rep. Marjorie Decker, and Rep. Dylan Fernandez, would legalize a pilot program to allow local communities to opt in to establish a supervised consumption site. It is just that, supervised consumption site. This is one of the only places for some folks in this community to access clinical care, HIV testing, treatment access for Hep C, which is a curable infection, but people come in because they want to stay alive. And I think that's one of the biggest things around stigma that we should confront, which is there are people in our community, there are people in the legislature who don't understand that people that are in facing addiction, there's this assumption that they don't want to live. Our clients at our drug use health program want to live. They don't want to die, but we can't give them the tools right now to keep them alive. So I really urge you to learn more about the issue if you're not familiar with it. We're happy to be a resource here at Fenway Health and the coalition we're working with Jim and Gary. I'll put back in the chat. We do have an action alert that you can quickly and easily type in your address and send a communication to your legislators, yourselves. We need that support. We were told several years ago, come back to the legislature when you have a community ready to host a program and a program ready to run it. We have both of those things. We need the state's support. Frankly, we need the state to get out of the way from local communities who are ready to run these right now. So thank you for your time.
Thank you, Carl. Thank you for your compassion for saving lives. And I want for people to know that the toolkit for that is on our website, www.moar-recovery.org, along with all other information for the policy initiatives that you just heard about. And we'd like you to come back on April 4th at 6:30 p.m. for follow-up and at any one of our state meetings. But we want to close further because one other important issue is we've talked about the need for culturally based treatment. Well, that also goes for reentry. And we have Alfredo Gonzalez from Casa Esperanza with us that's going to be talking about CASA services.
Hello, Marianne. Hello, everyone. Thank you so much.
Hi, Alfredo.
How are you? Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for giving me this time. Before I begin, I just want to thank everybody for everything that was being said. You guys all inspired me so much, and I really appreciate what everyone was saying tonight. My name is Alfredo Gonzalez. I am the Associate Director of Recovery Support Services at Casa Esperanza. And for those that don't know what Casa Esperanza is, I have a PowerPoint for everyone. So Casa Esperanza is a bilingual, bicultural behavioral health center that specializes in serving the Latino community in Massachusetts. Services are offered in Spanish and in English. We can go to the next slide. In 1984, Casa Esperanza founded its first residential treatment program for Latinx in Massachusetts. Today, Casa offers patients a full continuum of culturally specific bilingual behavioral health care services. Our treatment model integrates substance use disorders, mental health, and primary care treatment recovery support and wraparound services. Casa uses an assertive engagement approach aimed at mitigating and eliminating barriers to care for traditionally underserved individuals and families. Next slide. At Casa, we believe that access to evidence-based behavioral health treatment is a human right. Culture and all its diverse representation plays an essential role in each person's unique pathways in recovery. And our work is about sustaining hope and encouraging dreams, helping people move beyond just getting by so that they live and lead lives filled with pride, purpose, and love. Next slide, please. So this is just kind of a brief view of who we are helping. 92% of our clients are Latinx. 98% have co-occurring substance use disorders and mental illness, and 78% of our demographics were formerly incarcerated. Next slide, please. So this is just kind of a big overview of all the programs that we offer at Casa Esperanza. I won't go into all of them, but just they're there. As you can see, we have a lot of them, including our men's program and our Latinos and Latinas and Niños program, which are our residential recovery programs. Next slide, please. The one that I really want to focus on is our reentry program. The reentry program empowers participants with tools they need for successful transition from incarceration into recovery. Transcend works to identify and remove barriers faced by Latinx individuals and other people of color returning to our community. And that's my info at the bottom. Next slide, please. So why is this so important? When somebody is coming out of incarceration, they're going to be facing with many barriers, and a lot of which we've spoken about tonight. We talked about stigma and lack of resources and so many other things. I just wanted to point out a couple of things for you. Latinx individuals are incarcerated in state prisons at a rate that is 2.9 times the incarceration rate of non-Hispanic whites. And Latinx people are overrepresented in Massachusetts criminal justice systems. Latinx people make up 11% of the state's population, but 25% of the jail's population and 26% of the prison population. Upon release, many struggle to find resources and have difficulty navigating and coordinating services between heavily siloed community-based service providers. They can't find housing, they can't find meaningful jobs, especially those that pay enough to have a good living here in Massachusetts. And many lack education and the linguistics and cultural barriers that they face are tremendous, especially with the Latinx community. Another big issue is that early childhood trauma, ACEs, is such a huge amount of the population that is in prison. In the rest of the US, 64% of the population has at least an ACE score of 1. In prison, that's 97%. And in the US, 16% have an ACE score of 4 or higher, but in prison, it's 78%. So we're incarcerating the people that are most traumatized, putting them together with more people that are traumatized, and then we're just letting them go. And then we expect them to be okay when they come out. So we really have to do a better job of helping them and putting that treatment first. Next slide, please. So, thank you. So this is what our program does. I won't go through everything, but I just want to point out one thing is we do individual service plans that we develop short and long-term goals. I feel that's really important because we're not just like putting everybody in one group and saying, this is what you need. I mean, obviously there's employment and housing. Those are always going to be big issues, but we really treat people as individuals, see really what they need and work with them to achieve those goals. Next slide, please. Oh, sorry. So it's really important for us to get to patients as early as possible. Early patient contact with participants build healthy habits, reduce risk of relapse, develop a transition plan for post-release. It's essential that we work with them as early as possible to form those healthy habits and to build those support structures that they need. We want to make sure that they know they're being supported, they're being helped as early as possible, so that trust can also begin. Because a lot of times, many of them have issues trusting anybody. So the earlier we can get to them, the better it's going to be. Next slide, please. So we support all the bills that we heard about today. We want to make sure that that people with substance use disorders, that it's their human rights to have the help that they need. We have to offer them compassion and support with the resources and services to aid in their recovery. Nearly all have experienced serious prior trauma. Incarceration only serves to further traumatize and stigmatize people with substance use disorders. They need treatment, they need support from this community. In addition, we just want to say that CASA also wants to ensure that individuals have ongoing access to essential behavioral health care and recovery support services. We want to propose community-based service providers be designated as essential workers in the correctional facilities, so that when things like the COVID pandemic or any kind of big thing happens, that we are guaranteed to be able to go in there and begin that pre-release treatment that they need so much. So I want to pass it over to my guest here today, Alfonso Ramirez. He's going to talk to you a little bit about his experience here at CASA. And his story.
Hi, everyone. My name is Alfonso Ramirez. I'm 30 years old and I'm from Dominican Republic. And one of the things that I want to talk about is about Casa Esperanza, is that this kind of program that does help, because it helped me in a lot of things, like, in my addiction problems. And it's a lot of things that I went through when I was like, in my young age. And something that Casa Esperanza have been helping me just, to get everything back on my feet and giving me a lot of resources like transportation, getting myself like, trying to get myself prepared to get interviews and stuff like that, and to have the opportunity to keep my sobriety. And this is something that I always say, like, if I was in jail, I would have never had the chance, like, to have this kind of resource, because with this kind of resource that they offer, they don't offer that in jail, and it's kind of like, it's kind of traumatized, because like when you go to a real trauma and just being in there, and you need this kind of help, sometimes you ask yourself, you'll be like what I'm doing, and like what I'm gonna, like when I get out from there, like what I'm gonna be able like to do outside, and I'm really grateful for this kind of program, because this program, they do help, like, people like me, and being in this kind of predicament, like now I could be just like myself, like, to be somebody independent and being somebody, successful, like be myself. I probably see myself like, here to a year, or who knows, like, like I see myself as an like, as a SR, as a special recovery or a counselor, help other people that need this kind of treatment. And this is something that I literally, like, I'm really grateful for it. And we need programs like this in our community. Like, we do need to help other people like that, because they don't see us, like, as now like that, when we in that messed up life, when they know, like, we need this kind of treatment. We don't know, how far we're gonna go, we're not, if we don't have this kind of program, how far we're gonna go, being in jail, all this kind of stuff, how are we gonna go? We cannot do none of that stuff, and that break my heart, like seeing all these kind of people, even when I work around, like, see all this kind of stuff, and I'm like, Jesus Christ, like, what's going on? They need treatment. They need this kind of program. Thank you. I'll leave you guys with that, and have a blessing, everyone. Thank you.
Alfredo, we love you there. And we have one more, and Alfonso, Alfredo and Alfonso. I like that. Yeah. We are going to move on. We want to learn about the syringe program from Allie Hunter. She's doing some terrific work that we all need to hear about it. Take it away, Allie.
Okay, awesome. Well, it's been really great being with everyone tonight, and I realize I'm standing between you and bedtime maybe, so I'll give you the short version, but just excited to share an update about the Community Syringe Redemption Program that I co-founded a little over a year ago. So myself and a friend, we started this program, the Community Syringe Redemption Program, which is essentially a needle buyback program. And the idea was really to try to think outside the box in terms of how to incentivize individuals to return syringes, with this kind of idea where 311 calls for service related to needle pickup went up about 400% over the last few years. And obviously this presents a safety and quality of life issue. But more importantly, we're thinking about the program as a way to engage individuals who were using drugs and, creating positive behavior changes, having a positive interaction on a daily basis. And so we came up with this syringe buyback program, essentially, which gives a cash incentive to enrolled adults to bring back used needles. It's a low threshold income earning opportunity. It develops job readiness skills. And again, it has this engagement element to it. We also distribute Narcan When we started, the goal was to collect 1,000 needles a week. This was in the Mass and Cast 2.0 strategic plan. So we were like, all right, 1,000 needles a week. Let's see how this goes. We built a mobile redemption vehicle, and we pulled up to Atkinson Street last December. So December 2020, actually. And we weren't sure, we didn't do any advertising, but it really quickly took off. We had 42 people sign up on the very first day and collected 2,275 needles again that very first day. So the city has been incredibly supportive of this and has allowed us to expand to 2 more locations. So now we operate on Atkinson Street, in Nubian Square, and in Haymarket Square. So there's 3 different locations where individuals can participate in the program. And it's in the morning, kind of by design. There's a gap in services at that time. We were looking to kind of offer the program before businesses open, and really heard from participants that this gives them a positive way to start their day, that they really feel like they're contributing to the community, and it puts their whole day in a positive trajectory. So essentially, individuals enroll, they bring in their syringes. In most cases, it's a mix of their syringes and ones that they collect. They're offered Narcan and referrals to services. And again, every interaction is a really positive interaction. So a little bit of data there. I put our website up there as well. If people want to check it out a little bit more and want to be in touch to learn more, I'd encourage you to do that. But to date, we've collected 1.4 million syringes. So quite a few. So we average 4,427 syringes per day, 22,000 syringes per week. So our original goal, remember, was 1,000 per week. It's 22,000 per week that we've collected. 2,000 people have enrolled in the program, and it's been just a really positive way to engage with people, to build trust, and to make referrals to other services. Just today, as an example, we had 88 people participate in the program, and we collected 4,420 syringes. So yes, we've seen, again, a lot of great benefits. Calls for service related to needle pickup are down 50% citywide. And I think this is, really the thing that has changed. And like I said, participants, there's some quotes on the website. So if you do go to the website, I encourage you to scroll down and hear some quotes from our participants, just in terms of the impact that it's had on them and their morning. And, we have a new program where there's even more kind of employment opportunities with the program participants. So just mostly wanted to share a little bit of an update. It's a new program that, again, is funded by the Boston Public Health Commission and the Recovery Services Office. Also, RISE Massachusetts helped us get the program off the ground, and I'm really grateful for that. So if you want to learn more about it, I would love to be in touch. And again, thank you to Moore, and thank you to everyone who stuck around till the very last minute to hear about all the great work. It's a pleasure to be here with you.
Wow.
Thank you.
Thank you, Allie. That is exceptional, just exceptional to be able to be doing that, to be able to the needles, and then to support people, give them incentives, a plus project, and so scientific at the same time with human compassion.
Mary Ann, can I just say something?
Yes.
The speakers were wonderful as always, but Allie, I really stuck around to hear you because I've heard great things about that program, and I really advocated to hear more about this program. So
she did.
No, thank you. That's really sweet of you to say. And I know I gave you guys the short version. Maybe we could do something in the future, but appreciate you saying that.
Definitely, definitely. I think we tried to do a conference in 3 hours. So it's been amazing. You all have been amazing. And our next steps will be to follow up on all of these policies and make our voices heard as we have been, and to take the stories beyond here to the State House and beyond. But with all these wonderful legislators with us today, from Senator Keenan, Rep. Balzer, Rep. Malia, Rep. Madaro, and Representative Fluker-Oakley, and it's just been more wonderful, and that you're all visible, vocal, and valuable. And we're going to continue on to do the best we can. It is somebody reached out and said, about all lives mattering, and all lives do matter, but they don't matter until Black Lives Matter. So we really want to really enforce the diversity, the equity, and the inclusion, and to include all populations. And thank you so much. Here we go. You're visible, vocal, valuable, and victorious. Thank you.
Thank you, Mary Ann.
All good.
Yeah,
Hope we
yeah.
see you on April 4th and beyond.
Oh, you know it. You know it.
Thank you, everyone.
Yeah.
Night, everybody.
Thank you,
It was a
everyone. Thanks for
pleasure.
showing up. Thank you, Mary Ann. Great job, team.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you. Bye, everybody.
A few
Bye from
inspiring
everybody.
words.
Thank you. Bye from Step Rocks. Bye.
Take care, everybody.